It's the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. For more on the Seminoles, including Osceola's coverage from veteran Seminole insiders, message boards, Osceola virtual happy hours, and more, go to theosceola.com. And right now, enter the code FSU20 and get 20% off your annual subscription. That's FSU20.
Hello and welcome to another post-game edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines podcast. Today, we'll be breaking down FSU's 42-26 loss to fifth-ranked Notre Dame in South Bend on Saturday night. My name is Patrick Burnham. I'm a football writer for the Osceola and host of Seminole Sidelines. I am joined today by the publisher of the Osceola, Jerry Kutz, the managing editor of the Osceola, Bob Ferrante, and Osceola football analyst and former FSU center, Mark Salva. All right, guys, the results on the scoreboard didn't work out in FSU's favor, and some of what happened on the field certainly didn't either. But one of the questions we had coming out of the Jacksonville State game was how much of the success against Jacksonville State, which included 5 touchdowns and 5 possessions by the offense, and only 48 yards allowed by the defense in the second half, including 88 yards before Jacksonville State's last drive, would carry over for Florida State into the Notre Dame game. And we got some mixed results, some good, some bad. But we did learn a lot about this team coming out of this game. And, Jerry, I just want to start with you. You were on site. What was your 2 big takeaways from the game?
Well, my first thought was the offense had played well, good enough to compete, good enough to maybe win with a couple of turnovers. My gut was that our defense had really let us down, and that was my 2 takeaways. Now, the one thing that was my first takeaway. My second one is that we fought. We made it a fourth quarter game there, and I felt like that was a really big improvement for Florida State. We have quit in situations very much like we faced in the first and second quarter, and we didn't quit. So those were my takeaways.
Bob, what about you?
I think we were curious if, last week was a mirage, what they did against Jacksonville State. We saw a lot of positives. It just didn't seem like they played situationally really well on offense, 2 of 14 on third down, the red zone issues. As far as settling for 3, you got the interception that was, the ball. I think Norvell said the ball should have been more outside toward the pylon, where it's either a catch or a off the hands, and it's definitely not an interception. So they left some points on the board, but still put up 26. And part of that is credit to you got some turnovers that led to 10 points, but I think we did see an overall positive. There were signs of progress. And again, I'm sounding like a broken record, but the offense is playing well around the quarterback, and it's good to see that. It's definitely Jordan Travis's team. He's leading it very well.
Mark, what about you?
Pretty similar to what Bob and Jerry talked about. Going into this game, I was hoping to see them build an offense around the skill set that Jordan has, and it's exactly what they did. I was so pleased to see them design schemes and plays that accentuated his skill set. And it was really, really productive because that guy competes. He really wants to win. And that's a guy that can lead your team. So I was encouraged to see that. I see the offensive line getting better every week. We're not dominating, but you know what we're doing? We're getting hats on the ball and guys in the right places and making some athletic plays. And I think the defense obviously let us down in some moments when we're trying to stay in the game. I mean, obviously we're not going to capitalize on every opportunity offensively, and that's where the defense needs to bail you out, and vice versa too. But that's why football is a team game. And I think, when we're really fighting to stay in the game, I don't know that I had any confidence that the defense was going to make a stand, especially in the second quarter and especially that last drive in the second quarter. So a little disappointed in the defense, encouraged by the offense. It's kind of where I stand.
Yeah, and I agree with parts of what all of you said. We've talked a lot in these podcasts and in our articles about the fact that we might not see the improvement necessarily reflected on the scoreboard and the win-loss column. But some things did carry over from the Jacksonville State game. The offense continued to get better. We saw signs of maturity on offense. They took advantage of the short field opportunities that the defense and special teams provided them early and came away with 10 points off those turnovers. That's something that good offensive football teams take and good football teams take advantage of. So we saw that. We also saw 4 sustained drives of over 67 yards in the game against a very good Notre Dame defense, and we only had 2 of those drives, 67-plus yards, against Georgia Tech and Miami combined. So we continue to see that progress on offense. And then, of course, I'm like everybody else, very disappointed in the defensive front seven's effort. Gave up 240 yards of rushing offense in the first half alone, which Notre Dame came into the game averaging 229. And, something that was supposed to be a strength of this team has been non-existent so far this season, and we've still got 8 games to go. But we did see a lot of positives, and you guys mentioned the fighting and Jordan Travis and the offensive line play. So I do want to go back to Jordan Travis. He was definitely the leader of the offense. He's definitely ignited, put a fire in this offense. They do seem to be taking on his personality. He is a competitor. He is a guy that ran the ball, led the team in rushing with 19 carries for 96 yards. We talked a little bit about this before we started. Bob and Mark, you guys have some concerns as far as we all agree he's the right thing for this offense right now. But we also have some concerns about, can we continue the quarterback run game with a guy that's, Jordan's not the biggest guy in the world. So, Bob, talk a little bit about Jordan rules and what Florida State can do to help Jordan.
I love it when Jordan runs. I just would prefer a little bit more maybe RPO instead of that design quarterback run where he's going to take a hit, whether it's between the tackles or slightly off tackle or whatnot. It just doesn't feel like a great long-term plan to have him carrying it 15 times a game on a design run. He's going to get dinged up. He knows he's got to slide. He knows he's got to not take these unnecessary hits. His right hand, I think, was the one hand that hurt. And he says he'll get some treatment on it and be better. But the point is, getting hurt on an unnecessary hit, and you're not available for the next drive or the next game. And Florida State just can't have that when you still have uncertainty as to who your backup quarterback is.
Yeah, because what we know, based on reputation anyway, is that the only other dual-threat quarterback Florida State has on its roster is Chubba Purdy, and Chubba's obviously been hurt with a broken or injured collarbone that required surgery, has not played as of yet in a game, has been practicing. But, Mark, I do want to talk to you about Jordan Travis. What are some things that Florida State can build off of with him in the offense? And obviously the other thing, the one thing that we've all noticed is that the adjective tough and competitive are associated with Jordan now. It looks like to me the offensive line and the rest of the offense is feeding off of that. Is that something that will help in as an intangible with his players?
Of course it is. He's a guy that I think when he's in the huddle, there's confidence in that huddle. We're no huddle, so there's confidence in that unit that they can be productive. There's that little bit of uncertainty about, is he going to get the ball off, or is the play going to be made? I think they have confidence in it. I think the bigger thing too is that they have designed things around his strengths. One thing that I saw that he did really well, especially on some of the short rolls and in the flashing boots and stuff, is that he got the ball out early. There's one instance I can remember, Terry ran a quick stop and it was a play fake and he just gave it to him right now. Whereas, in the past, I think Blackman would have held on to the ball and then maybe not give it to him right away. So things like that, they can build off of those things they can do, and the other thing they did, they took their shots, then sometimes they took their shots on early downs, which is, that helps keep it off balance. So, continuing to do those kinds of things. And to Bob's point, maybe try to coach them up on when to take that hit and when not to take that hit, run out of bounds, slide. you can't totally avoid it with this style of offense that we're going to have to play with him, but you got to be smarter and more calculated as to when you take those chances with him, because otherwise, we can find ourselves back where we were a couple of weeks ago in terms of, quarterback play.
Yeah, and I know they want to try to keep the offense as close to what they've done in the past as possible, but there was a marked difference in Jordan's accuracy and his level of comfort when he was in the pocket versus half roll, sprint outs, play action, when they bought him a little bit of time by freezing the linebackers and safeties. I certainly hope that's one thing we'll see. He was very successful in half rolls and half field reads, and then obviously they did take their shots. The big touchdown pass to Tamari Terry was a 48-yarder. I believe it was – might have been off play action, but certainly it was in the pocket. But, they struggled in third and long, particularly last night, so they've got to continue to find a way to stay in front of the chains. But, they were 0 for 6 on third and 9 or longer, but 2 for 3 on third and short. So, which was actually, it's kind of a surprising stat because they averaged 5 yards on first down for the game, but I didn't think they were going to be quite in that many third and longs, but they had 6 of them. Jerry, what was just kind of your quick take? You were there on Jordan and the energy he brings to that offense.
Well, one thing, I think 2 things he does. One, if you go back and watch that game tape, I think you'll see his escapability is pretty special. There were a number of times they had a sack, and that guy made somebody miss and came out of there and extended the play. And that really, I think, helps our offensive line look good. And he really gives you a little extra there. The second thing is, I wonder if he's not giving us a little extra in the running game. Webb had a tremendous night, and in my mind, and I wonder if the threat of Jordan isn't helping us with our running game.
I think it's certainly helping in the running game. Jordan did lead us in rushing with 96 yards, but certainly we would have been. I wish we could have been a little bit more successful with the running back run game. You had Ladanian 13 for 59 and Corbin 2 for 9 yards and Toafili 3 for 1. But Mark, let's talk a little bit about the offensive line. We didn't expect them to run the ball against Notre Dame like they did against Jacksonville State, but some of that did carry over. Florida State ran for over 150 yards against Notre Dame, 153 to be exact, and that's after sack yards is taken out. But talk a little bit about the improvement. Robert Scott, a true freshman, started at right tackle. Maurice Smith was back at center, redshirt freshman, and then Dante Lucas, obviously a sophomore at left guard. Talk a little bit about the young offensive linemen and what you saw from them on Saturday night.
I continue to be impressed with the progress they're making. I saw a lot of things that are really encouraging. First of which, on Terry's long bomb touchdown early in the game, they brought the heat and it was a max protect, and we picked it up and executed a great play there. A lot of the pass protections, Notre Dame brought a lot of twists and stunts, and we really passed them off really well for the most part. The only time I can remember where we didn't was on a quarterback draw early in the game. They twisted right into it. But other than that, those guys are really doing a good job, I think, protecting. And that's even the young guys. I mean, you mentioned Scott, and then having Love Taylor go to the left side, really, so the ability to plug guys in different places and execute. The other thing I saw was, early in the game, we ran a zone play where it got stoned for like a 3-yard loss. And when I looked at it from behind, I commented to you guys on the text, said, that needs to be an adjustment that we can make, and let's see if they make the adjustment. And, they did. They went to the sideline, made a scheme adjustment, and that's some of those big runs that Webb had was a result of that. So the ability to adjust in the course of a game and execute, I think, was really good. So, overall, physically dominating, maybe not like Notre Dame's line, but getting a hat in the right place, getting a hat on the right guy, not having straight run-throughs very often. I mean, we're really doing a good job. And I'm going to tell you, on the play before when when Jordan Travis did the fake pitch and scored, but the play before we ran that quarterback power, Maurice Smith pulled at center, and they ran that quarterback power and made a real athletic play, and it was a really well executed play. I mean, we really looked like a real offensive line. I was really encouraged about that. So making great strides with this group of guys. You got to give Coach Atkins a lot of credit.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they've, it was a weak link coming into the season for the offense, and certainly continues to improve on a weekly basis. And I thought it was of the 16 games I've now covered, or 17 games I've now covered for the Osceola, I thought the offensive line looked as good and showed as much potential as it has in any of those games against a very good Notre Dame defense. I mean, this was not Jacksonville State these guys were playing against, and the results bear that out in some just statistical categories, but certainly an impressive step forward, I think. Bob, you got any comments on the offensive line?
I just, to echo Mark's point, I think we're seeing in-week adjustments by Coach Atkins. We're seeing in-game adjustments by Coach Atkins. And this is something that just is out of necessity because of injury, because of inconsistency or whatever he might be seeing, scheme adjustment. I think he's making really good calls with a lot of good young linemen too. Like you mentioned, you got Robert Scott, true freshman, Maurice Smith, a redshirt freshman, Dante Lucas, a true sophomore. So a lot of young guys. He's trying to figure out how all these pieces are working. Look, I'm still not sold on Bavian Johnson. I'm not sure he's the best option there. But the pieces together at the moment, this is working quite well.
Yeah, I agree with you on I have some questions. They talked about Thomas Strader a lot in preseason camp, and even going into the season, we've yet to see Thomas on the field. And obviously, Bavion has been at the right guard most of the year, except for last week when he played center against Jacksonville State, or at least started there. But I think it's a unit that will see continue to get better as the year goes on, and a unit that will need to get better if Florida State is to get some more wins in the win column this year. But certainly positives from that, positives from Jordan's ability to compete and open up that offense a little bit. I want to finish with a positive, so I'm going to move to what was not a positive on Saturday night before we get to our fourth point of the day. But my third point is the defense, guys. The defense, particularly the front seven against the run, was to be honest about it and not overly critical, was just awful. I mean, 240 first half rushing yards given up to Notre Dame, 353 for the game. A lot of it off the same play over and over, a counter play that Florida State had no answers for. Guys, the front seven was supposed to be the strength of this defense, particularly the front four, where you have four upperclassmen leading those spots, and they're just not producing. There's no way around it. Marvin Wilson and Corey Durden do not resemble anything what they looked like last year. Mark, you've got more experience at this than any of us on this panel. What's going on with Florida State's defensive front four?
That's a great question. You watch the great defensive lines around the country, and even in our past. And one thing that always stuck out was you saw great effort, you saw great playmaking ability. You guys saw guys getting off blocks, making plays. You don't see a lot of that coming out of this group for whatever reason. Oftentimes there are guys in position to make plays, and they don't make them. Is conditioning a factor? I don't know. It appears it looks like it may be. Is scheme a factor? Hard for me to say. I do know this. I watch the front four, and I watch guys that sometimes don't play with the correct leverage for what appears to be their gap responsibility. I see guys getting hooked. I see guys being moved. They're just not getting it done up front, and really that's the bottom line. I mean, it comes a time when you just got to, play football, and you got to play it hard, and you got to play it right, and it's just not happening. And I'm at a loss as to why that is.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I believe that some of playing, whether it's offense or defensive line, some of it's attitude and want to and hustle, and you just don't see that on a consistent enough a basis for them to be very successful. You had, I believe, Lovett, Wilson, and Kando and Robinson combined for 4 tackles on Saturday night. Durden actually produced 4, and then you can kind of put off some of the production at line or lack of production at linebacker based on some of the youth, because you are playing 2 true freshmen out there and Lundy and Dix, but certainly the linebacker play has not been where it needs to be for this defense to be successful. And Jerry, kind of want to ask you about your thoughts on the defensive front 7.
It's a mystery. I mean, in the post-game interview, I asked Maury Gaynor what he attributed it to, and he said a lot of missed assignments. And we can talk about that a touch. I mean, that's coaching. Are you repping it enough? Is it scheme? Are they confused? Are we asking them to do too much? I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. But it was obvious there were missed assignments on Saturday because, man, I could have run through some of those holes.
Yeah, there were some big ones. Bob, what did you see from the defense?
It just seemed like whatever linebacker was in the game, we saw that one play where Lundy and Dix were in and just, totally overran it. And the holes were huge for Notre Dame, 8.4 yards per carry. It seemed like a lot of times they were running away from Gaynor's side of the field. So, that's probably smart on Notre Dame's part to figure that out through game film review and to know who to take advantage of, quite frankly. I think, to Gaynor's point, when Jerry asked the question, it was missed assignments, but Gaynor did say he felt like they practiced it. They knew the scheme. They were prepared in his view. It's just on Saturday night, they clearly were not, or looked like they were not prepared. And there was just no ability to make an adjustment. I don't know if you can make that adjustment on the fly somehow in game. Maybe not, but it seems like if you prepare for it all week and you're just blowing it consistently, I don't know.
Yeah, and big plays continue to halt this defense. At one time, they had in the first half, Florida State had given up 190 yards in just 6 plays. And, it continues to bite them. They don't cause turnovers when those big plays happen. They're usually the opponents are converting those into touchdowns. And then even after Florida State took the 17-13 first quarter lead into the second quarter, Notre Dame comes right back and produces a 75-yard drive and an 81-yard drive to take a 28-17 lead, and they would eventually take a 35-20 lead into the second half. So I don't know what the answers are anymore.
Here's the answer. The answer is this: go back to your fundamentals. Whenever you get in a situation like this, let's go back and do the basics, right? And the basics for those front 7 is take on blocks, fight the leverage the right way, separate, hustle to the ball. I mean, that's the minimum job description those guys have to do. And we don't even do that. Let's do that first. Let's do our job, and then all the other linebackers too, take on a block, use the correct leverage, separate, hustle to the ball. I just want to see that. And then the scheme and line up correctly. That might be the other thing. If they're missed assignments, is it in alignment? Is it in gap responsibility? It's just you just go back to fundamentals, and if we can do that, maybe surely they can do that, right? We got senior guys up there, upperclassmen. Surely they can do that. They'd be made to do that.
Yeah, that was disappointing when Florida State took that lead, and the defense comes and gives up. One, they had to earn it, 8 plays, 75 yards. The other one was like taking candy away from a baby. 4 plays, 81 yards. Didn't even put up a fight. At some point, that same toughness that has rubbed off on the offense for Jordan Travis, there's got to be a guy that sparks the defense, and maybe if Hamza comes back, he's that guy, or maybe it's Travis Jay if he's fully healthy. But certainly right now, Amari Gaynor, Asante Samuel, and Renardo Green seem to be trying to carry the defense on their own, and they need help from the other 8 guys. And I'm sure there's other guys that are playing well, but those are the guys that stand out. But the defense was bad, and it has been bad all season with the exception of one half against Jacksonville State, and that is the one thing that did not carry over from the Jacksonville State game was the defense's ability to be successful in getting off the field and shutting people down, particularly this weekend in the run game. But I do want to move on our 4th point. I want it to be a positive. One of the things that we have talked about repeatedly over most of those last 17 games, especially last year, was, and the word we like to use in our podcast is capitulate. A lot of times Florida State would kind of seem like they didn't put a lot of effort into it after they got down early. But this team competed for 4 quarters, as bad as the defensive play. We'll get into the 4th down stop and why that's important when we get down there to end the game. But let's just talk about this for a second. Florida State goes up 3-0. The game kind of started in a good way for Florida State, 10 points off turnovers. But you go up 3, only to fall back behind 14-3, but Florida State comes right back to take a 17-13 or 17-14 lead into the 4th quarter. Let's talk about that. We said they couldn't get behind, and it did hurt them, but Florida State found a way to overcome that early deficit and fight back to take a lead. That's something we didn't see against Miami, something we didn't see a lot last year. They couldn't come back from these deficits. Let's talk about that, Bob. What do you think about and especially in the first half, the fight the offense showed in getting back in the game?
Yeah, emotionally, down at Miami, they folded a couple of times. I think they regrouped coming out at halftime and had that drive before James had the interception. But, yeah, we did see a lot of fight all the way to the finish on offense, on defense. That last 4th down stop was pretty significant. I did think, for example, Notre Dame was running the ball, 11 out of those 12 plays on that final drive.
Yep.
So I think Florida State knew what was coming, and that's the one asterisk I put by that 4th down stop. But still, Florida State showed up, didn't fold. And, look, we've seen this team fold for a couple of years now. When things are going tough, they're not – they check out, and they're gone. And we didn't see that. That's definitely a huge positive.
Mark, this has been a sticking point for you and I over the last couple of 17 games as well. And, you and I both played college football. And, our generation, you played every play, you played every snap, regardless of what the scoreboard said. How good did it make you feel as a former player and probably more importantly as a former FSU player to see the effort that Florida State should give on a weekly basis, but how good did it make you feel to see them fight?
Yeah. Look, we're sitting here talking about a loss like it's almost a win, a moral victory. And that's got to change, right?
Right.
That's got to change. And this is the first step because we're a long way away from that right now. And the first step is fighting through adversity, fighting through all the way to the end of the whistle, fighting through to the last play. And we saw that. And part of that is because we were experiencing success on offense. I think there was some hope there because we were experiencing success on offense, especially. And so that kind of feeds into that, never give up attitude. I think before when offensively we were, not having success and not executing well and, trying to figure out how we were going to generate offense, that can be a hopeless situation. But because we were experiencing some success, I think that fed into that. Okay, let's fight through this. We have a means, we have a path forward. I think we got to get there defensively too. We got to figure out a way, because we had moments on defense. I mean, it was bad, especially the big plays, but there were moments on defense, to Bob's point, on that last drive and some other things. So, find those things and build on that, and let's experience some success on defense and give a modicum of hope in there to where, we gives us the will to fight through these adverse times.
Yeah. And I agree. I thought I don't want to make a whole lot more of it than what it is, but I thought that the fact that the defense could fought on that late drive was a good sign. I don't know if they would have done it last year. So certainly we're starting to see a reflection in the team's intensity of that of their coach, or at least what their head coach seems to have on a daily and weekly basis. So I thought that was good. It was fun. It was fun to see the offense battle, and even though as imperfect as it was, they battled, and Jordan Travis battled and kept his team in the game, even though they did not play a great game. And listen, you're right. This is not a moral victories occupation. And, Mike said that after the game that, he didn't take any solace in the moral victories, but he did see some things that he was proud of. And one of those was his team fighting. Jerry, what were you going to add?
Yeah, I was going to paint a little color to that final drive that you're all talking about, where we did get a goal line stand. Think about this just a second. Your offense has a beautiful drive, has a chance to score. You're a defensive player. You're cheering for him. You're expecting Travis to stick it in there, and the ball gets intercepted and run back towards your bench. And that's adversity right there. But as Notre Dame was driving towards the end zone where their band and a lot of their students were, those students were chanting, for a touchdown. They were go for it, go for it, go for it. And Notre Dame left their starters out there. That was not against scrubs. I mean, Ian Book was in the game, and FSU coaches called several timeouts there and were screaming at their players, to encouraging them. And it was a very important moment, And I think sometimes there's moments like that you can draw on later down the road. But for the atmosphere that there was at that game, that student body was right there in that end zone, and it was louder than you would imagine it to have been. That was a pretty intense moment for them to succeed in.
Yeah, I think it was good. I mean, it was a positive ending for the defense, which needed one very badly, because it had been. I did not see as much positive as you guys did in other parts of the game, but certainly thought they ended with a positive. And whether it was to get the ball back or make the defense stay on the field because of those timeouts, it certainly hopefully that will continue to pay benefit. But Mark, I know we got to get close to wrapping up, but. Guys, let's talk about what can Florida State build off of moving into next week's North Carolina game, which is going to be very tough. North Carolina, wow, talk about an offense that just goes and goes and goes, and they found their running game against Virginia Tech to go along with Sam Howell and his arm. What does Florida State carry over from this game, Mark?
Well, you got the defense's attention, right? They were embarrassed. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond coming into this game at home against North Carolina, against a quarterback who was one time committed to us, right? And so where's our defensive pride? Where's our response? What's our response going to be in this moment? It's going to be critical moving forward. I'm going to choose to be positive and say they're going to respond and that we'll compete in this game. Offensively, definitely things to build off of. We need to have, there's no secret now to what we're going to do, and that Jordan Travis is the focus, and he's going to be running. He's a threat running the ball, and North Carolina's going to scheme to that. What's our answer going to be? Who's going to be the next guy that is going to emerge in terms of the offense and take some of the pressure off Jordan, where he doesn't have to make every single play. Terry stepped up. I thought played a pretty decent game. Had some big plays, fought for the ball a little bit. I thought that obviously LaDavian Webb is a talent. Toafili. Those backs continue to be. I'd see Cam McDonald be a little bit more of a weapon. we can utilize him. And I think with the focus being on Travis, that he will find some space, and if we can get the ball to him. So lots of things to build off of. Interested to see what the response of the defense is going to be, and giving us a chance against North Carolina. I honestly feel like we may have a chance against North Carolina. Whereas I didn't know that I felt like we had a chance against Notre Dame. That's what this game did for me.
And North Carolina will come into this game ranked 5th in the nation after their track meet win against Virginia Tech yesterday, which I don't know if you guys got to see any of that game, but it was insane in the rain, offense for days and days and days. Bob, what do you think Florida State's going to carry into the North Carolina game from this experience in South Bend?
I think you see the blueprint for your offense, and Mark's talked about the identity. What is it? The identity, I think, is to run the ball with Jordan, to run with your backs. We've seen it with Toafili. We've seen it with Webb, at times with Corbin. Got to mix it up in that regard. You got to control the clock. The time of possession is a similar key to, Pat, what you wrote about Notre Dame. You've got to control the clock and keep Sam Howell, and that's a talented North Carolina team between the running backs and the receivers and everything they've got. You got to keep those guys on the sideline as much as possible, because the alternative is it becomes a shootout. And I don't like Florida State's chances in shootouts against teams that are possessing top 5, top 10 kind of talent. I do think you can put up some points, and maybe that's going to be a successful formula against, say, a Pitt or a North Carolina State. But with a team like Sam Howell and all those guys on the sideline, you got to run it. You got to control the clock. You got to help out the defense. Again, to use Mark's word, the complementary football that makes you successful.
Yeah, let's hope that North Carolina's defense that showed up at home against Virginia Tech shows up in Tallahassee, because that would make me feel a whole lot better. Jerry, what's your thoughts on what's going to carry over into the North Carolina game?
I think the offense, as you guys said, that I think they're starting to get a rhythm to them and getting some confidence about them. And like you said earlier in this show, they're starting to design an offense for the talents of the quarterback. So I expect to see that. They're going to have some fun drawing some stuff up this week.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I agree with everything on the confidence that y'all have all three mentioned. I think this team found out that, hey, we can compete with one of the better teams in the nation. We didn't play very good football, but it was a 9-point game in the second half at some point. I think it was 35-26. So, they closed it within a touchdown and a field goal of being in the game. I think that they can build off that and know that they can compete with some teams that are considered national powers. And you got a North Carolina team coming here that's got a lot of hype around it, but did struggle on defense, which now I want to play. We haven't played Spears up or Spears down in a while, so I got a quick question. You got North Carolina, Louisville, Pitt, and NC State in your next 4 ball games. North Carolina and NC State are probably a little bit better than what we thought coming into the season. NC State's kind of on a roll right now. And Louisville and Pitt may not be as good as what we thought. Spears up or Spears down? Florida State wins 2 of its next 4 ball games. Bob, Spears up or Spears down?
Yeah, I say Spears up. I think you got some really good chances. Louisville could be another shootout type game, but I like how this team matches up against Pitt. And NC State could be fun and wild as usual up in Raleigh.
Mark, Spears up or Spears down? Florida State gets 2 of its next 4 in the win column.
Spears up, baby. Come on. I'm all.
Hey, listen,
I'm gonna put my garden gold glasses on, man.
That's right. That's right. Hey, listen, we got to be positive. We're building the program here. Jerry, what about you? Spears up or Spears down? Florida State wins 2 of its next 4 games.
Spears up for the same reason Jill articulated. Got to be positive.
Yeah, and listen, I do think that, again, no, we're not counting moral victories here. None of us like them, but I do think that we're all very honest and that this program was not where we thought it was, not even where we thought it was when the season started based off what we saw at Miami. So I think that there's and Georgia Tech. So I think that we are trying Mike Norvell's trying to reestablish his program here. There are steps to that. Some of those improvements will have to be shown in the win column, but certainly, and there's certainly a lot to get better off of on both sides of the ball coming out of Notre Dame. But we did see improvement and some things carry over from Jacksonville State. We saw some improvement in some things from Miami, but we all know the defense has got to be able to control the run a little bit better than it has and continue not to give up these big plays like it has. But again, it was a 42-26 loss, but there were some good things that came out of it. And I, for one, cannot wait till this Saturday coming up against North Carolina to see what this team does, and to sit back with you guys next Sunday and hash this out again, and hopefully we'll continue to talk about positive things. But I want to thank you guys for joining me today, and look forward to talking to you next week.
Okay. Go Noles.
This has been another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. To subscribe to the Osceola, go to theosceola.com. And right now, enter the code FSU20 and get 20% off your annual subscription. That's FSU20. Go Noles!